Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Secretary of Finance and Enterprise Development, Joel Jack, and the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Health and Social Services, Sheldon Cunningham, addressed the media.
The plan for social service is really to have a 2-day retreat, which is going to be held on the 18th and 19th of this month. The mandate of social service is clear in terms of providing for the elderly, the less fortunate, the persons with disability, and even adolescents, mothers. And we have seen over the past that the service is not coming up to mark. So what we have been doing is looking at all units and seeing what their performance rating and what are they doing. So hence the reason we have compiled a document that we're going to take all managers and next in line to the manager to a 2-day retreat. Proposed, as I said before, is the 18th and 19th of this month. And we are looking at the Coffee River Nature Retreat for that retreat. We hope at the end, Coffee River Nature Retreat, we are hoping at the end of those 2 days, it is clear that we should identify the goals, objectives for each unit. Identify the mission and vision of statement for each unit. Identify the core values of each unit. Answer questions. These are some of the questions that I've been asking. Who are we? Where are we now? Where would we like to be? And if we answer these questions, we'll clearly understand why social service function within the THA. Identify the strength, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the units. What are the expected outcomes and impacts of each unit? Performance targets. Clear communication channel. We understand that persons don't understand lines of communication, and organizational chart is one that I'm keen in looking at. How the organization of the Department of Social Service function and where we ought to go. So we're going to look at that whole organizational structure. Recommendations, solutions for issues being faced by managers. Because I cannot have a unit function in our department and members of staff are not comfortable to perform these duties. Some of these duties they perform can also impact on their own lives. How do we deal with it? Develop a policy document for each unit which will provide information for the first 9 questions that I said before. We hope at the end of this retreat that each manager will now go back to their units and function effectively. As you can see, there have been a lot of issues in terms of the old age pension, disability grants, and so forth. As most of you know that social welfare, the Department of Health and Social Service have oversight for that unit. But the staffing and salaries are our responsibility, but they are under the Ministry of the People and Social Development. So that's the link that we have. So we always have been fighting in terms of where the organizational structure, who reports to who. And we have been seeing where reports was not coming to the division, which I had one-on-one with each staff member of that unit. And so we have come to a level of agreement in terms of how we're going to go out in the best of the people of Tobago. And that's the core aim of all members in the Department of Social Service. So we sat and we had discussion about 2 weeks ago, and I allowed the managers to make the decision that we need to have this retreat. They were the one that's saying, yes, we need to understand where we're going because somewhere along the line they have lost. And I'm only going to implement it by ensuring that at the end of it, the people of Tobago are served to the best of their ability. They are hardworking staff members. They go out the way because when you see disaster happen, they are there in the field doing the work. But I don't think they market themselves enough to say that they are doing the work that they are supposed to be doing. So I think at the end of this 2 days retreat, we can really change it around and have better relationship with the Department of Social Service. But again, I urge the citizen and the people of Tobago, if there are issues, raise them, because we cannot do it alone. We need you all to raise those issues. Let us know what are some of the issues you have faced each day, especially the senior citizen and the less fortunate. So you can bring them to the fore, and before the retreat, I could address them. You can call my office number at 635-1709 and raise those concerns, and I'll make sure that they are being addressed and we change the whole culture of the Department of Social Service.
Monday was budget day, as we're all well aware, and first let me congratulate the Minister of Finance on his third budget presentation, I believe. And in his 2-hour presentation this year, the minister sounded more like a politician than a banker. And so let me commend him on his budget presentation. But as we are well aware, this year's budget has serious implications for Tobago. You may recall in my first budget presentation in 2013, the theme of the budget was responding to the people's mandate. In this year's budget, the theme was keeping faith with the people's mandate, and it was formulated based on a number of individual consultations, and something that we did unique this year was a special survey of the Tobago population, and which information we used to glean the economic aspirations of the people of Tobago. One thing my budget statement sought to address this year was a perennial shortfall of funding from the central government, and especially the lack of funding under our development program. There are some issues which we want to address specifically today as I talk about the budget. As in the past, and what we have seen again this week, is that the national budget presentation by the central government continues to pursue a strategy, a deliberate strategy of financial control of the Tobago House of Assembly. And we have to address these issues if we have to move forward. And some of these issues must also be seen in the context of Tobago's quest for a greater degree of internal self-government. The first issue I'd like to treat with today is the continuing misrepresentation of the application of the Dispute Resolution Commission, or DRC, recommendation for allocating resources to Tobago. And again, in the last sentence of Mr. Hawaii's budget statement, he made a statement in keeping with the Dispute Resolutions Commission's recommendation. I wish to state, as I have stated last year, the fact that once you mention the DRC, you're talking about funding coming specifically to the Tobago House of Assembly and not necessarily to Tobago. So I received a series of phone calls congratulating me as secretary on, based on the consultations I would have had with Mr. Hawaii, and congratulating me on receiving $3.7 billion. I had to correct the individual and let them know that no, this is incorrect. And we were $1.1 billion short in terms of funding coming directly to Tobago. Just to inform the public, the DRC recommendations stipulates that the Tobago House of Assembly, not Tobago, or government departments in Tobago, that the Tobago House of Assembly be allocated a minimum of between 4.03% and 6.9% of the national budget for recurrent and development program spending in Tobago. Therefore, again, the minister indicated that Tobago will be receiving $3.7 billion, or 5.7% of the budget, and he remains committed. That was, being a bit disingenuous. So that is something that we have to correct. So the funding to Tobago in this year's budget is $2.6 billion. And out of that, we have $384 million for capital expenditure. And again, with respect to the issue of capital expenditure, we continue to receive underfunding for our development budget. And again, this year, we're seeing the same pattern. Talking about funding, once we could have predicted what the national budget would have been when I heard what the figure for Tobago was, because you know it's a minimum 4.03%. So at that time, we calculated that the budget would have been $64 billion before the minister was even through, given all the figures, because we got the BRS minimum. So again, we want to reiterate that the funding for the development program, again, the House of Assembly was allocated about 16% of our requests under the development program. And what this means is that unless the House of Assembly, unless we are allowed to explore alternative funding mechanisms, i.e. public-private partnerships and borrowing by way of term loans, Tobago's development trust can be seriously compromised, and the dreams and aspirations of the people of Tobago, as clearly enunciated in the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan for Tobago, those plans and those dreams will be under threat. What was also noticeable in this year's budget, it was the underfunding to several major developmental projects on the island. Let me elaborate a bit. In an effort to diversify the Tobago economy, the Tobago House of Assembly requested $40 million for enterprise development. And again, the minister would have alluded to the importance of entrepreneurship, to the nation. So the House of Assembly requested $40 million for enterprise development. We only allocated $1 million. Again, we asked for funding to expand Cove, and again, Cove was mentioned in the budget. And again, as we saw last year, Cove was designated last year a free zone area, and last year we got zero funding for Cove. And again, the minister made the point about the commitment for funding to Cove and to Tobago's diversification efforts. And again, the Tobago House of Assembly requested $65 million, and we only allocated $2 million. And if you will recall that we are currently constructing two factory shells at Cove, two important MPUs or multi-producer units, and those units will cater to about over 30 small to medium-sized entrepreneurs to provide much-needed space. So again, underfunding for Cove, as we have seen last year. And the provision for housing, again, as we have been on record, we have indicated that we have over 7,500, over 7,000 applications for housing. And in an effort to treat with this issue, the Assembly requested $492 million for housing, for a housing program, and we only allocated $28 million. And another issue, which is with respect to the allocation for tertiary education in Tobago. The Minister of Finance boasted of the gains made in the transition of nationals from secondary to tertiary education. And he also backed up this statement by allocating the largest amount of any budget to the Ministry of Education, $10.12 billion. Of some of the dozen or so initiatives recall, nothing was provided for in the Tobago context. And it is well known of the need for us of the policy of this administration and the need for us to improve our human resource capacity and the constraints, human resource capacity constraints that we have on the island. And the Assembly requested some $8 million to finance tertiary education through our financial assistance program, and we were only allocated $500,000 that we were hoping to hear a little bit more about in the budget is respect to the need for an international airport and the need for improvement in the air bridge service. We join in support with the All of Tobago, the Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We join them in lifting up their voices in condemnation of the central government's continuing failure to address the situation of the airport on the island. And if you may recall, this was one of the factors which was responsible for the pullout of Virgin Atlantic in Tobago. And we all remember how important Virgin Atlantic is or was to the tourism on the island. And the budget gives us no immediate comfort that that situation will be dealt with. Additionally, we were looking for a little bit more, a more meaningful statement from the minister with respect to the domestic air bridge. And I called it something short of a national disaster. Coming to the airport and seeing hundreds of persons marooned, unable to move between Trinidad and Tobago, persons, for various reasons, attempting to move between Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago, persons having to come to the airport sometimes for 5 days in succession attempting to go to the airport. So again, we want to put on record that the domestic air bridge must be treated as an essential service, and consideration must also be given to the Assembly's proposal to link the domestic air bridge from the international component and allow the management of Caribbean Airlines greater flexibility to respond to the needs of the people of Tobago. Another issue that we wanted we were looking for in the budget, for the budget to treat with, is the issue of crime and security in Tobago. In the last several budget statements, the people of Tobago have been promised the construction of 2 new police stations, Old Grange and Roxborough. And to date, no concrete steps have been taken to deliver these 2 critical projects. And I think it has been put once more on the table, and we believe that the central government must be held accountable, in terms of delivering these 2 important projects, because the minister is on record as saying that construction has begun, but I think when you look at reports, I think nothing is going on with respect to those 2 new police stations. So I think we'll have to, again, ask the minister, he has to check his facts with respect to the details with respect to the construction of those 2, the 2 police stations. Another major issue that we want to talk about, that we're looking forward to in the budget, is the delay in real support for the tourism sector. A major challenge facing the tourism sector is the delay in the implementation of the government's loan guarantee program. And again, we're working with the Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce to treat with this issue. You may recall that the program came about as a result of the decline in the tourism industry as a direct consequence of the global economic challenge. And the intervention of the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, the Tobago Division, and also the Tourism and Hotel and Tourism Association, supported fully by the Assembly, this whole loan guarantee program came about. And since the launch of this program, I mean, the minister gave some numbers, but if you talk to the Tourism Chamber, you'll understand from their standpoint that this program, has not gone anywhere. And I think the minister has to address this, because we are fully aware of the reluctance of the banks to assist and to restructure some of the loans. I believe it was 2 weeks ago the Assembly presented the Tourism Chamber with a check of just under $500,000 to assist their members in bookkeeping, making all the necessary records, putting all the proposals together to ensure that we don't have any significant delays in terms of the stakeholders in the tourism industry accessing that program. So just to reiterate the numbers the numbers for Tobago, under the recurrent expenditure, $2.202 billion. Under the development program, $384 million. Under the CPEP program, $23 million. And bringing the total allocation to $2.609 billion, resulting in a total increase of 5.3% over last year's figure. Last year, the Assembly received $2.47 or $2.48 billion. So again, I was also heartened by the minister's comment with respect to the fact that the government was intent on pursuing public-private partnerships as a modality to advance the nation's development program agenda. And the Minister of Finance is on record saying that he supports the Assembly in using the public-private partnership modalities in advancing our development program and our development program agenda, and the House of Assembly will be moving in that direction. We are also concerned with the statements by the AG and the statements by the Minister of Finance. So we want to be certain of that the recent appeal, that with the support from the Minister and the appeal from the Attorney General, that we have, we wanted something a little bit more in the budget as a formal support for public-private partnerships. As you're aware that of the recent ruling by Judge Budi Singh, and of course the subsequent appeal by the Attorney General. So we'll be seeking a little bit more clarity from the Minister of Finance with respect to the House of Assembly and our adoption of the public-private partnership modality to advance Tobago's development program.
I would just like to know what are your, because you didn't mention anything about the marina that was mentioned in the budget.
Oh.
What is your perception on the minister's stating his support for the public-private partnership?
Ms. Jackson, thank you for the reminder. It slipped me. I had it somewhere in my notes. Yes, the very important question about the marina. You would be mindful of the concerns of the Assembly with the minister's statement about consultation and meeting with the Assembly, and for us to have this item in the budget coming as a surprise, as a proverbial thief in the night. And we were surprised by it, and it's the first time as an administration we're hearing about it. And you have to position this against against the fact that, and I must inform the media and the public, that there is a national steering committee looking at the development of marinas in Tobago and as well as Trinidad. And at the last meeting that was held with the Executive Council, the approved site or the recommended site, the two recommended sites, I must say one of them was not Petit Trou. So it's a surprise to the Assembly that this was placed in the budget. And in the light of the fact that we were, you know, of all the series of consultations that we held with the Minister of Finance before my budget presentation and ahead of the national budget, and as well as our meeting with the Minister of Planning, Dr. Bo Tiwari, nothing was mentioned about a marina in Petit Trou, and this came as a surprise to the Tobago House of Assembly.
Where exactly did the Assembly want the marina placed? If not Petit Trou, where?
But it's not where we wanted it, is the professionals as part of the National Committee. They gave us two recommendations. One that I believe was, I don't want to give any misinformation, but I know it was not Petit Trou. And one recommendation was, I believe, at, was it Crown Point or Swallows? And the next recommendation was in the countryside. I believe it was Englishman's Bay or in Delaford. So it was not Petit Trou. And that came about as a result of all the studies and surveys conducted by that national committee. So it came as a surprise to us, having met with the two ministers, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Planning.
I just wanted to know from you, Mr. Jack, in terms of the Tobago's budgetary allocation, as you said, it's 2.609 billion and not 3.7 as stated by the minister. Why do you think, in terms of Tobago's budget, why do you think Tobago does not receive what it asks for? And do you think the Tobago House of Assembly will be able to go ahead with its developmental trust in the new fiscal year?
Well, definitely, as we have done in the past, as the old people would say, we cut our cloth to suit. We manage, and we manage well as we have done in the past, and we'll continue to do so. You may recall in the Global Economic Challenge that we managed well during that period. And even though we don't get what we ask for, we continue to manage well and to do so. But it goes beyond just getting the subvention. And again, the financing mechanism of Tobago's development must be priority. And again, I make this statement as I've done in the past. Financing Tobago's development is financing national development and must be seen in that context. And again, we should not be shackled by subvention-based budgeting, waiting on the 4.03%. Tobago should be given the right, one, to borrow by way of term loans. Secondly, to raise bond financing, as you know, as we have seen in the papers done by the central bank, and also to explore public-private partnerships as an effective mechanism. So with those four options available to Tobago, we'll be able to advance Tobago's development at a rapid pace and to really transform this beautiful economic space we call Tobago.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending September 13th, 2014.